Commander Jake Morrison stood perfectly still on the bridge of the horizon's edge. His eyes were locked on the large screen in front of him. The screen showed the Galactic Council chambers where hundreds of alien representatives sat in their designated seats. Some had tentacles, some had scales, and some looked almost human, but not quite. They were all watching as the final vote was being counted. Jake's hands gripped the metal railing so hard his knuckles turned white. Behind him, his crew members whispered nervously to each other. Everyone knew what was at stake. The Krell Empire had declared war on Earth 3 weeks ago, and their massive fleet was now just 3 days away from humanity's homeworld. The Council had promised to protect Earth when humanity joined the Alliance 15 years ago. That promise was about to be tested. The Council speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, raised one hand for silence. The chamber went quiet. "The vote is complete," the speaker announced in a voice that was translated automatically into every language in the galaxy. "The motion to provide military assistance to Earth against the Krell invasion has been rejected. 412 votes against, only 73 in favor." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He watched as Ambassador Linda Hayes, Earth's representative, stood up from her seat. Her face was pale and her voice shook slightly as she spoke. "Please reconsider. The Krell will kill billions of humans. We followed every rule you gave us. We paid our tributes. We limited our military just like you asked. We trusted you." A reptilian delegate from the Sarvan Collective hissed into his translator. "We sympathize with Earth's situation, but the Council cannot risk open war with the Krell Empire. They are too powerful. Perhaps if humanity had been less aggressive in your colonization efforts, this situation could have been avoided." Linda's face turned red with anger. "Aggressive? We settled 3 uninhabited planets. The Krell want to enslave us because we refused to give them mining rights in our own solar system, but the Council members were already leaving their seats. The session was over. Earth was on its own." Jake turned away from the screen and pressed the communication button on his console. "Get me a secure line to Admiral Ryan Cole, Priority Alpha." Minutes later, the Admiral's weathered face appeared on a smaller screen. Cole was in his late 60s with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. He looked at Jake and simply asked, "They said no?" "Yes, sir." "The vote wasn't even close." Cole nodded slowly as if he had expected this answer all along. "Then it's time. I'm authorizing Protocol Midnight. Tell everyone to start the wake-up sequence." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Protocol Midnight was something he had only heard rumors about. It was supposed to be Earth's last resort, a secret project that the Council didn't know existed. "Sir, are you sure? If the Council finds out we built something without their approval?" "They just abandoned us to die, Commander. I don't particularly care what they think anymore." Cole's voice was hard as steel. "I'm heading to the mountain facility now." Cole out. The screen went dark. Jake looked around at his crew who had all heard the conversation. "Set course for Earth orbit," he ordered. "Maximum speed. We're going home." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, Admiral Cole walked through corridors that didn't appear on any public map. The facility had been built in absolute secrecy over 12 years ago. Every nation on Earth had contributed money, materials, and their best scientists. The project had required lying to the Galactic Council repeatedly, hiding massive energy expenditures and coordinating between governments that didn't always get along. But they had done it because humanity's leaders had learned an important lesson. You can't trust anyone to protect you except yourself. Cole reached the vault door at the end of the final corridor. It was made of metal so thick it could survive a direct nuclear blast. 2 armed guards stood on either side. They saluted as Cole approached. "Open it," Cole said simply. The guards nodded. Cole placed his hand on a scanner and spoke his authorization code. The door's massive locks began to turn with a deep grinding sound that echoed through the corridor. It took almost 3 minutes for the door to fully open. Beyond the door was a chamber so large it could hold a football stadium. And floating in the center of that chamber, held in place by invisible magnetic fields, was a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was enormous, at least twice the size of Earth's largest military vessels. The hull was perfectly black, not painted but made from materials that seemed to eat light itself. There were no windows, no visible weapons, no markings of any kind. It looked less like a ship and more like a piece of space itself had been carved into the shape of a predator. Cole walked along the observation platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. A team of technicians worked at various stations, running final diagnostics and checking systems. The lead scientist, Dr. Sophie Grant, hurried over to meet him. She was a thin woman in her 40s with messy brown hair and intense green eyes. "Admiral, we weren't expecting Protocol Midnight for at least another month. Some of the weapon systems haven't finished their final testing phase." "We don't have a month, Doctor. We have 3 days before the Krell arrive." "Will she fly?" Sophie hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she'll fly, and she'll fight. But I can't promise everything will work perfectly. Nothing in war ever does." Cole looked up at the massive ship. "Have you reached Captain Ben Carter yet?" "We sent the recall signal an hour ago. He should be here within 6 hours." Cole allowed himself a small smile. Ben Carter had been humanity's best captain before the Council forced Earth to downsize its military. He had been in retirement for 2 years, living quietly on the coast and supposedly fishing every day. But Cole knew that Carter had been waiting for this call. Men like Carter didn't retire in their hearts. They just waited for the next battle. "Start the wake-up sequence," Cole ordered. "Power up all systems. I want this ship ready to launch the moment Carter walks through that door." Sophie nodded and began giving orders to her team. Throughout the massive chamber, lights began to flicker on. The ship's hull started to glow very faintly as power flowed through systems that had never been tested outside of simulations. A deep humming sound filled the air, growing louder as the vessel came to life. Admiral Cole watched and thought about what they were about to do. This ship violated at least 40 Council regulations. It used technologies that were specifically forbidden. Artificial intelligence for targeting. Quantum weapons that didn't exist in Council arsenals. Propulsion systems based on theories that Earth scientists had developed in secret. If the Council found out, even if Earth survived the Krell, humanity would be cast out of the Alliance forever. But as Cole looked at the black warship floating before him, he realized he didn't care. The Alliance had failed. The Council had abandoned Earth when it mattered most. Now humanity would save itself, and the galaxy would learn what humans could really do when they stopped following other people's rules. The ship had no official name. The classified documents just called it Project Revenant. But Cole knew that soon enough the entire galaxy would know this ship by the fear it created. Soon enough, humanity's enemies would learn that abandoning Earth had been the biggest mistake they ever made. Captain Ben Carter was sitting on his porch when the phone rang. It was an old-fashioned phone, the kind with buttons instead of a holographic interface. Ben liked old things. They were reliable and didn't need updates or connectivity to work properly. He looked at the phone for a long moment before picking it up. He already knew who was calling. "Carter," he answered simply. "Ben, it's Ryan Cole. I need you to come in." "The Krell? 3 days out?" "Council voted no on intervention. We're activating Protocol Midnight." Ben looked out at the ocean. He had bought this house specifically for the view. Every morning for 2 years he had watched the sun rise over the water and told himself he was happy in retirement. But now, hearing those words, he felt something wake up inside him. Something that had been sleeping but never really gone. "I'll be there in 4 hours," Ben said. The recall signal said 6. "I drive fast when it matters." Ben hung up and walked inside. In his bedroom closet, behind the civilian clothes he had been wearing for 2 years, was his old military uniform. It still fit perfectly. He had made sure of that, even though he told himself he would never wear it again. He got dressed quickly, grabbed a small bag that had been packed and ready for 2 years, and walked out to his car. As he drove through the night toward Colorado, Ben thought about the last time he had commanded a ship. It was the Explorer 7, humanity's first deep space vessel capable of traveling beyond the local cluster. He had taken a crew of 60 people on a 2-year mission to survey potential colony sites. They had found 3 beautiful planets, all perfect for human settlement. Then the Council had found out about the mission and ordered Earth to stop all military exploration immediately. The Explorer 7 was decommissioned, and Ben was asked to retire early to avoid causing political problems. He had been angry then. Angry at the Council for limiting humanity. Angry at Earth's government for agreeing to those limits, and angry at himself for not fighting harder. But he had followed orders because that's what good soldiers did. Now, driving through the dark with his headlights cutting through the night, he realized that sometimes following orders was the wrong choice. When Ben finally reached the mountain facility, guards were waiting at the outer checkpoint. They scanned his identification and waved him through without a word. The facility was built inside a hollowed-out mountain, accessible only through a tunnel that descended nearly a mile underground. Ben had never been here before, but he had heard stories about what they were building. The stories hadn't prepared him for the reality. Admiral Cole was waiting in the main observation chamber when Ben arrived. The older man smiled and extended his hand. "Ben, thank you for coming." "You knew I would," Ben replied, shaking his hand. Then he turned and saw the ship. For a long moment, Ben couldn't speak. He had commanded ships before. He knew the feel of a bridge under his feet, the sound of engines powering up, the way a good vessel responded to its pilot's commands. But this ship was different. It didn't just look powerful. It looked dangerous in a way that made his instincts scream warnings and admiration at the same time. "She's beautiful," Ben finally said, his voice quiet with respect. Cole handed him a data tablet. "She's also completely illegal by every council regulation. Quantum entanglement weapons that can destroy targets without actually firing projectiles. Artificial intelligence systems that can track and engage hundreds of enemy ships simultaneously. Shield generators that work on principles the Council banned 300 years ago, and a propulsion system that our scientists say technically violates physics as the Council understands it." Ben scrolled through the technical specifications on the tablet. His eyes widened as he read. "This isn't just a warship. This is a statement. If we use this, the Council will never trust us again. They abandoned us, Ben. I don't care if they trust us. I care about keeping Earth alive." Cole looked at the ship. "Can you command her?" Ben looked up from the tablet and met Cole's eyes. "Yes, but I'll need a crew that understands what we're doing. This isn't a regular military operation. This is us telling the galaxy that humanity makes its own rules now. I have your crew ready. Volunteers, all of them. They know the risks." Over the next several hours, Ben met his team. Lieutenant Amy Foster was first. She was 32 years old, former fighter pilot with a gift for tactical thinking that had earned her 3 medals before the Council forced Earth to reduce its military academies. She would handle weapons and combat strategy. Commander Greg Palmer would be his navigation officer. Palmer was quiet and intense, a man who thought in mathematics and could calculate jump coordinates in his head faster than most computers. He had been the top of his class before being reassigned to desk work, when Earth downsized its fleet. Dr. Sophie Grant would manage the experimental systems. She was the lead scientist on the project and knew the ship better than anyone. She was nervous about the untested weapons, but Ben could see the excitement in her eyes. This was her life's work about to be proven in actual combat. The rest of the crew filtered in over the next hours. 60 people total, all specialists, all volunteers. Ben gathered them in the observation chamber and looked at each face. Some were young, barely in their 20s. Others were older veterans like himself who had been forced into early retirement. All of them had one thing in common. They had family, either dead or distant. This mission was designed to be one way if things went wrong, and everyone knew it. "I'm not going to lie to you," Ben told them. "This ship uses technology that will make the Council declare us criminals if we survive. The Krell fleet outnumbers us 200 to 1. The odds of us living through the next 3 days are not good." He paused and looked around the chamber. "But if we don't try, Earth dies. 6 billion people will be enslaved or killed. So we're going to take this beautiful illegal ship and we're going to show the Krell what happens when you attack humanity. Questions?" A young engineer raised her hand. "Sir, does the ship have a name?" Ben smiled. "The official documents call it Project Revenant. But I think when we're done, the galaxy will give it its own name. They'll call it whatever they call the thing they have nightmares about." The crew laughed nervously. Ben could see the fear in some faces, but he also saw determination. These were people who had volunteered knowing they might die. That kind of courage was rare and precious. "Everyone to your stations," Ben ordered. "We launch in 2 hours." The crew dispersed, moving to their assigned positions throughout the massive ship. Ben walked aboard with Admiral Cole at his side. The interior was as impressive as the exterior. Instead of the cramped corridors of normal military ships, the Revenant had wide passages with smooth walls that glowed softly with built-in lighting. The bridge was circular, with stations arranged so that Ben could see everyone from the central command chair. Ben sat down in the captain's chair for the first time. It adjusted automatically to his body, and displays lit up around him showing every system on the ship. He placed his hands on the armrests and felt the subtle vibration of power running through the vessel. This ship was alive in a way that others weren't. It was waiting to be used, eager to prove what it could do. "Admiral, I need you to open the mountain," Ben said calmly. Cole nodded and spoke into his communication device. "Control, this is Cole. Begin launch sequence." Above them, hidden beneath tons of rock and carefully camouflaged panels, the mountain began to open. It took 10 minutes for the massive doors to retract fully. Night sky appeared above the ship, stars visible and clear. "All stations report ready," Amy Foster announced from her tactical console. "Navigation ready," Greg Palmer added. "Course plotted to intercept the Krell fleet." Ben took a deep breath. "Then let's go introduce ourselves. All power to engines. Take us up." The Revenant rose smoothly from its cradle, the magnetic fields releasing it gently. The ship climbed through the open mountain, emerging into the night air. As it cleared the mountain peak, the engines engaged fully. There was no roar, no visible exhaust. The ship simply accelerated with impossible smoothness, climbing faster and faster until it was a black shape against the stars. Inside the bridge, Ben watched Earth shrink behind them. Somewhere out there, the Krell fleet was coming. They thought they were hunting prey. They had no idea they were about to meet something that would change the galaxy forever. "Time to intercept?" Ben asked. 46 hours at current speed, Palmer replied. "Good. Let's use that time to run every system check possible. I want to know every strength and every weakness of this ship before we meet the enemy." Ben settled back in his chair. "And someone get me everything we know about Krell fleet tactics. I want to understand how they think before I show them how we fight." The bridge crew got to work. The Revenant accelerated into the darkness between Earth and the approaching enemy. Behind them, Admiral Cole watched from the mountain facility until the ship's engines faded from his sensors. "Good hunting, Ben," Cole whispered to the empty sky. Then he turned and went back inside to prepare Earth's defenses, just in case the Revenant failed. But in his heart, he believed that humanity had finally created something that wouldn't fail. They had created something that would make the galaxy remember why humans had survived and thrived on a dangerous planet for millions of years. They had created a predator. War Master Krokan sat in his command throne aboard the flagship Bloodclaw and felt satisfied with his life. He was leader of the Krell Empire's third assault fleet, conqueror of 17 worlds and destroyer of 9 species that had dared to resist. His ship alone carried enough firepower to break a planet. His fleet of 200 warships could sterilize a solar system. And now, in just 30 hours, he would add Earth to his list of victories. The humans had been foolish. They had refused to give the Krell Empire mining rights to their asteroid belt. That refusal had insulted the Emperor, and insults could only be washed away with blood. Krokan had studied the human fleet during his approach. Their ships were small and primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams that Krell shields could deflect easily. This would not be a battle. It would be an extermination. Krokan's communication officer, a younger Krell with green scales and eager eyes, approached the command throne. "War Master, we have detected something on our long-range sensors." "Another human ship attempting to flee?" Krokan asked lazily. "No, War Master. A single ship on an intercept course, moving very fast." Krokan sat up straighter. "How fast?" The officer checked his instruments. "Faster than Council standard drives should allow. It will reach us in approximately 6 hours. Perhaps the Council decided to intervene after all." Krokan felt a moment of disappointment. A fight against Council ships would be more interesting than slaughtering helpless humans, but it would also force the Empire to negotiate rather than conquer. "Identify the ship. Which Council race sent it?" The officer worked his console for several minutes. His confusion grew with each passing moment. "War Master, the signature is not in our database. It doesn't match any known Council vessel design, and there is something strange about its appearance on sensors. The readings fluctuate as if the ship is not entirely there." Now Krokan was interested. He stood and walked to the sensor display. The approaching ship showed as a blip on the screen, but the blip was unstable, sometimes strong and sometimes barely visible. "A cloaking system. If it is, it's unlike any cloaking technology in Council records. Hail them. Demand identification." The communication officer sent the standard Empire challenge across all frequencies. For several minutes, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers, speaking perfect Krell language with a strange accent. "Krell fleet, This is Captain Ben Carter of Earth. You are ordered to turn around and leave this system immediately. You have one chance to comply. The bridge of the Bloodclaw went silent. Then Krokan began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the chamber. His crew joined in, finding the humans' demand hilarious. One ship challenging 200. One human ordering the mighty Krell to run away. It was absurd. Human Captain, Krokan replied when his laughter subsided. I am War Master Krokan, and I have destroyed species more powerful than yours. Turn away now and we will kill you quickly. Continue approaching and we will capture you and you will die slowly while you watch your world burn. There was a pause. Then the human spoke again, his voice calm and cold. Wrong answer. You had your chance. The communication went dead. Krokan looked at his tactical officer. All ships to battle formation. When that human ship gets within range, I want 50 vessels to fire simultaneously. Turn it into dust. The Krell fleet began to reorganize. 200 warships moved with practiced precision into combat positions. It was excessive force for a single target, but Krokan wanted to make an example. He wanted humanity to see their brave captain destroyed instantly, so they would know resistance was hopeless. Meanwhile, aboard the Revenant, Ben Carter sat calmly in his command chair and watched the Krell fleet arrange itself. Amy Foster had her hands dancing over the tactical console, marking targets and calculating firing solutions. Greg Palmer monitored their approach vector, making micro-adjustments to keep them on course. Dr. Sophie Grant stood at her station managing the experimental weapons, her face pale but determined. They're going to open fire the moment we're in range, Amy observed. I'm reading power buildups on at least 60 ships. Let them, Ben said quietly. Sophie, how are the shields? Operating at full capacity, Sophie replied. But Captain, these shields have never been tested against this much firepower. I can't promise they'll hold. They'll hold, and if they don't, we'll adapt. Ben leaned forward slightly. Amy, I want you to target their flagship. The big one in the center. Sophie charged the quantum disruptor. Let's show the Krell what real technology looks like. The Revenant continued its approach. On Krell sensors, the ship seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Their targeting computers struggled to maintain a solid lock. The Krell fleet waited, weapons ready, until finally the human ship crossed into maximum firing range. All designated ships fire, Krokan commanded. 60 Krell warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams powerful enough to melt mountains converged on the single point where the Revenant should have been. Kinetic rounds moving at significant fractions of light speed followed microseconds later. It was enough destructive force to vaporize a small moon. The Revenant's shields activated. They didn't glow or shimmer like normal defensive screens. Instead, they seemed to create a bubble of twisted space around the ship. The Krell weapons hit that bubble and simply stopped existing. The energy didn't splash against a barrier or dissipate across a surface. It just vanished as if it had never been fired at all. On the Bloodclaw's bridge, Krokan stared at his displays in disbelief. That's impossible. Nothing can completely negate that much firepower. War Master, the human ship is still approaching. No damage detected. Fire again. All ships this time. Before the order could be fully executed, Sophie Grant activated the quantum disruptor. The weapon didn't look like a weapon. There was no visible beam, no projectile, no explosion. One moment the Bloodclaw was there, a massive flagship that had survived 100 battles. The next moment, a perfect sphere of space containing the Bloodclaw simply ceased to exist. The ship, its crew of 3,000 Krell warriors and War Master Krokan, all vanished in absolute silence. The Krell fleet froze. Every captain stared at their sensors, trying to understand what had just happened. There had been no warning, no buildup of energy, no time to raise shields or take evasive action. Their flagship had simply been erased from reality. Ben opened a general communication channel. Krell fleet, this is your final warning. Leave now or share your War Master's fate. You have 10 minutes. A new Krell commander, the captain of the second largest ship, assumed command of the fleet. His name was Vakar, and unlike Krokan, he was not amused or confident. He had just watched the impossible happen. But Krell honor demanded courage, and retreat without fighting was worse than death. All ships, attack formation. Focus all fire on the human vessel. The entire Krell fleet opened fire at once. 200 warships, thousands of weapons, all targeting the Revenant. The amount of energy being thrown at Ben's ship could have destroyed a continent. The kinetic rounds alone had enough mass and velocity to crack a planet's crust. The Revenant moved through it all like it was sailing through a gentle rain. The shields continued to absorb everything, and when they reached capacity, the ship's systems automatically redirected the excess energy into their own weapon batteries. The Krell weren't just failing to damage the Revenant. They were charging its weapons for it. "Amy, you have full weapons authorization," Ben said calmly. "Pick your targets," Amy Foster smiled. She had trained her entire life for this moment. Her hands moved across her console with practiced precision, the artificial intelligence system linked to her thoughts, understanding her intentions before she fully formed them. Together, human intuition and machine processing created something neither could achieve alone. The Revenant's quantum disruptors fired in rapid sequence. 6 more Krell ships vanished in perfect spheres of annihilation. The gravitational weapons activated next, creating localized black holes that crushed 3 ships into singularities before dissipating safely. Directed energy beams, far more advanced than anything in the Council's arsenal, punched through Krell shields and melted ships from the inside out. But the most devastating weapon was the one the Krell couldn't defend against because they didn't understand it. The Revenant's AI could predict enemy movements by processing millions of variables simultaneously. It knew where Krell ships would move before their captains gave the orders. It could calculate which targets were most important to the enemy formation and eliminate them in the most efficient sequence. Commander Vakar watched his fleet die. Ships exploded or simply vanished. Formations collapsed. Experienced captains panicked and made mistakes. In the first 15 minutes of combat, the Krell lost 40 ships. In the next 15, they lost 60 more. The human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, appearing behind formations, firing from angles that should have been impossible, and moving in ways that violated every principle of space combat the Krell understood. "All ships retreat," Vakar finally ordered, his pride broken by the reality of his situation. "Emergency jump. Get away from that ship." The surviving Krell vessels tried to flee. Their jump drives needed 30. The Galactic Council station orbited a neutral star halfway between 20 different civilizations. It was supposed to be a place of peace and diplomacy, where conflicts were resolved through discussion rather than violence. But right now, the massive chamber was filled with shouting voices and angry accusations. Ambassador Linda Hayes stood at the human delegation's podium and tried to make herself heard over the chaos. Representatives from 30 different species were all talking at once. Some were angry at Earth for hiding advanced technology. Others were afraid of what humanity's ship might mean for the balance of power. A few were quietly pleased that someone had finally challenged the Council's authority. The Council speaker, the same blue-skinned being who had denied Earth help against the Krell, finally restored order by activating a sound dampener that silenced everyone except himself. "This emergency session will come to order. We are here to address the unauthorized military vessel deployed by Earth against the Krell fleet." A delegate from the Therion Collective, a species that looked like upright lions with silver fur, stood up. His name was Velcor, and he was known as one of the more reasonable voices on the Council. The humans violated 47 different Council regulations with that ship. They developed artificial intelligence beyond approved limits. They created weapons using banned quantum technologies. They built a military vessel during a time when Earth was supposed to be reducing its armed forces. "We did what we had to do to survive," Linda shot back. "The Council promised to protect us. You voted to let us die instead. What were we supposed to do?" A reptilian delegate from the Sarvan Collective hissed angrily. "You were supposed to trust the Council's judgment. We have maintained galactic peace for 6,000 years by ensuring no single species becomes too powerful. Your ship threatens that balance." "Your balance was threatened the moment you refused to help us," Linda replied. "You can't expect species to follow rules that get them killed." While the Council argued, Ben Carter sat in his command chair aboard the Revenant and watched the political drama unfold on his displays. The ship was currently in high orbit around Earth, close enough to respond if the Council tried anything, but far enough away to avoid seeming immediately threatening. "Captain, we're detecting multiple jump signatures," Amy Foster announced from her tactical station. 20 ships entering the system. They're Council security vessels from 7 different species. Ben felt his jaw tighten. "Weapon status?" "They're powering up targeting systems. No locks yet, but they're getting ready." Amy looked at him. "Orders?" "Hold position. Let's see what they do." Ben opened a communication channel to Admiral Cole on Earth. Ryan, we have council ships incoming. They might try to force the issue. Cole's face appeared on a screen. He was in Earth's Orbital Defense Command Center, monitoring everything. I've got defense platforms ready if you need support. Just say the word. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Ben switched his attention back to the council fleet. The commander of the council security forces was a Therian officer named Keln. He was professional and calm as he opened a channel to the Revenant. Human vessel, this is Commander Keln of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You are ordered to stand down and prepare to be boarded. Your ship will be seized and dismantled in accordance with council security protocols. Ben took his time before responding. He looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see how he would handle this. Commander Keln, with all respect, we're going to decline that order. This is not a negotiation, human. Your ship violates council law. You must surrender it. Our ship saved 6 billion human lives. The council was willing to let those people die. So forgive me if I don't care much about council law right now. There was a long pause. Ben could imagine the conversation Keln was having with his superiors, trying to figure out how to handle a human who simply refused to cooperate. Finally, Keln spoke again, his voice harder. If you do not comply, we are authorized to use force. Ben smiled without humor. Commander, I just destroyed 150 Krell warships. You have 20 vessels. Do you really think this ends well for you? Another pause. Then Keln said something surprising. No, I don't, but I have my orders, human. I must follow them even if I don't agree with them. Ben respected that. Keln was a soldier doing his duty, but Ben had his own duty to protect. Then I'm sorry, Commander, but I can't let you take this ship. Earth needs it, and I won't surrender our only real defense. All ships target the human vessel, Keln ordered reluctantly. Prepare to fire on my mark. Amy's hands moved across her console. Captain, I have firing solutions on all 20 ships. I can disable them without killing anyone if you want. Ben considered his options. He could destroy the council fleet easily. The Revenant was far more advanced than anything they had, but killing council security forces would make Earth permanent enemies with half the galaxy. On the other hand, if he did nothing, they would try to take his ship, and he couldn't allow that either. Target their weapon systems only, Ben decided. Show them we're serious, but don't kill anyone unless we have no choice. Aye, Captain. The Revenant's weapons powered up. The Council ships detected the energy buildup and immediately opened fire. 20 ships launched missiles and energy beams at once. It was a coordinated attack that would have overwhelmed most vessels. But the Revenant's shields absorbed the attack easily, and the ship's AI tracked every projectile, every energy beam, and calculated the optimal response. The Revenant returned fire with surgical precision. Directed energy weapons, far more focused than the Council's, struck each ship's weapon ports. The beams didn't destroy the ships. They just melted the weapon systems into slag, rendering the Council vessels harmless. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 minutes. Commander Keln stared at his displays in shock. His weapons were gone. All 20 ships were now defenseless. The human vessel hadn't even moved from its position. It had simply swatted away their attack and neutralized them like it was brushing away insects. Stand down, Ben ordered over the communication channel. I don't want to hurt you, Commander, but I will if you force me. Now back off and let the politicians figure this out. Keln was silent for a moment. Then he gave the order for his ships to withdraw. They moved to a safe distance, damaged but intact, and waited for new instructions from the Council. On the Council station, the emergency session had descended into chaos again. The delegates had watched the brief fight through sensor feeds. Many were now genuinely frightened of what humanity had created. Others were angry that 20 Council ships had been defeated so easily. A few were calculating how they might get access to similar technology for their own species. Velcor, the Therian delegate, stood up and spoke in a voice that cut through the noise. We need to acknowledge reality. Earth has developed technology beyond what we thought possible. They did it in secret, yes, but they did it because we failed them. Now we have a choice. We can try to force humanity to give up their advantage, which will likely result in more conflict, or we can adapt to this new situation. Adapt how? The Sarvan delegate demanded. By letting humans ignore all Council regulations? By allowing them to build weapons that could destroy any of us? By recognizing that our monopoly on advanced technology was always going to end eventually? Velcor replied. Earth proved that determined species can innovate beyond our restrictions. How long before others do the same? How long before we face a galaxy full of ships like the human vessel, but built by species we trust less than humans? Linda saw her opportunity. The Council could work with us instead of against us. Earth isn't interested in conquest. We just want to be able to defend ourselves. Let us keep our ship, and in exchange we'll share some of our defensive technologies with other species who need protection. The chamber exploded with voices again. Some delegates liked the idea. Others hated it. But Linda could see that Velkor's argument had struck home. The Council's power had always been based on controlling access to advanced technology. If Earth could break that monopoly, others would try too. Better to work with humanity and maintain some control than to fight and lose all control. The Council speaker raised his hand for silence. This matter requires extensive deliberation. We will adjourn for 3 days while specialized committees examine the human vessel's technology and determine appropriate responses. Linda felt a surge of frustration. 3 days of debate while tensions remained high. But she also recognized it as a small victory. They weren't trying to destroy the Revenant immediately anymore. They were talking about regulation and control, which meant they were accepting that the ship wasn't going away. Back on the Revenant, Ben received a message from Commander Keln. It was marked personal rather than official. Ben opened it out of curiosity. Captain Carter, this is Keln. Off the record, I wanted to say that you fought honorably today. You could have destroyed my ships and killed my crews. Instead, you disabled us without casualties. That speaks well of Earth's intentions. I will mention this in my report to the Council. Good luck with the politicians. You'll need it more than you needed luck against the Krell. Ben smiled slightly. He sent a brief reply thanking Keln for his 3 days felt like 3 years. Captain Ben Carter spent those days keeping his crew ready, while politicians across the galaxy argued about what to do with Earth and its dangerous ship. Every hour brought new rumors. Some said the Council was preparing a massive fleet to destroy the Revenant. Others claimed that half the Council species were secretly negotiating with Earth for technology trades. Nobody seemed to know the truth. On Earth, Admiral Ryan Cole met with world leaders in a secure bunker beneath Geneva. Every nation's representative was there, from the smallest island country to the largest continental powers. They had put aside their usual disagreements because they all faced the same question: what should humanity do next? The president of the North American Federation spoke first. We need to be realistic. Even if our ship is powerful, we can't fight the entire galaxy. If the Council really wants to destroy us, they have the resources to do it. The premier of the Asian coalition shook her head. But they haven't attacked yet. That means they're divided. Some species support us and others are afraid to make a move against us. We have more leverage than we think. Or they're just preparing a bigger fleet, the European Union representative argued. We should negotiate while we still can. Offer to share some technology in exchange for keeping the Revenant. Admiral Cole listened to them debate for an hour before he finally spoke. We're forgetting something important. The Council didn't fail us because they were evil or cruel. They failed us because their system is broken. For 6,000 years, they've kept peace by making sure nobody gets too strong. But that system only works if the Council actually protects the weak species. When the Krell came for us, the Council chose politics over principles. Other species saw that happen. They're wondering if the Council would abandon them too. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what Cole was saying. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about whether the Council's old way of running the galaxy still worked. So what do we do? The African Union chairperson asked. We offer them a new way, Cole replied. We don't give up our ship, but we don't keep our technology secret either. We share defensive systems with any species that wants them. We help other civilizations build the capability to protect themselves. The Council stays in charge of diplomacy and law, but they don't control military power anymore. It gets distributed across the galaxy. That could start a weapons race, someone warned. It could, Cole agreed. Or it could create a balance where every species has enough strength to defend itself, but not enough to conquer others. Right now, the galaxy depends on the Council being fair. We just proved they're not always fair. So let's create a system where fairness is enforced by capability, not just promises. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Linda Hayes was having similar conversations with delegates who approached her privately. Many were from smaller species who had watched Earth's situation with growing concern. If the Council could abandon humanity, They could abandon anyone. Velcor, the Therian delegate who had shown some sympathy for Earth, met Linda in a private room away from the main chambers. "I'm going to be direct," he told her. "Half the Council wants to destroy your ship and punish Earth severely. They see you as a threat to order. The other half wants to negotiate, but they don't know what Earth really wants. So tell me honestly, what is humanity's goal here?" Linda thought carefully before answering. "We want to survive. That's first. But we also want other species to be able to survive too. The Council abandoned us when we needed help. We don't want that to happen to anyone else. So we're willing to share our technology, but only if the Council agrees to real reforms. No more monopoly on advanced weapons. No more forcing species to stay weak in the name of peace." Velcor was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking us to give up the foundation of Council authority? I'm asking you to update a system that's 6,000 years old. Times change. Technology advances. You can either adapt or eventually get swept away. And if we refuse?" Linda met his eyes steadily. "Then Earth keeps its technology, builds more ships like the Revenant, and protects itself. Other species will see that and start doing the same in secret, just like we did. Your authority erodes slowly instead of transforming peacefully. Either way, the old system is already dying. We're just offering you a chance to guide how it changes." Velcor stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars glittered in the endless dark. "You humans are either very wise or very dangerous. I'm not sure which. Can't we be both?" He laughed quietly. "Perhaps. I'll speak with some of the other delegates. No promises, but I'll try to move things in a reasonable direction." After Velcor left, Linda allowed herself a moment of exhaustion. She hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The pressure of potentially determining Earth's future was crushing. But she also felt a strange excitement. Humanity had always been good at forcing change when necessary. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed right now. On the 4th day, the Council reconvened. The chamber was packed with representatives from 200 species. News networks across the galaxy were broadcasting the session. Everyone knew this would be a historic moment one way or another. The Council speaker stood at the central podium. "This session will determine the status of Earth and its unauthorized military vessel. We have received reports from technical experts, security analysts, and diplomatic advisors. The decision before us is complex and will have lasting implications for galactic order." Ben Carter watched the broadcast from the Revenant's bridge. His crew was at battle stations, ready to fight if necessary, but hoping they wouldn't have to. The ship hummed with power, its systems primed and waiting. "Whatever happens, we did our best," Amy Foster said quietly. "We did more than that," Ben replied. "We survived, and we made the galaxy think about how things should be. That's already a victory," the Council speaker continued. "Earth has been charged with 47 violations of Council regulations. Under normal circumstances, these violations would result in severe sanctions and mandatory disarmament. However, these are not normal circumstances. The Council's failure to provide assistance against the Krell invasion has been noted and discussed extensively. We acknowledge that our decision was based on political considerations rather than our stated principles of protecting member species." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Council admitting a mistake was rare. Therefore, we propose a new framework. Earth will be allowed to maintain its advanced military capabilities under specific conditions. First, Earth must share defensive shield technology with any Council member species that requests it. Second, Earth must agree to limitations on the production of quantum-based weapons. Third, Earth will participate in a new Council committee focused on updating military regulations to reflect current technological realities. Linda Hayes felt her heart racing. This was better than she had hoped for. Not everything they wanted, but a real compromise that let Earth keep the Revenant while also reforming the system. But the speaker wasn't finished. In exchange, the Council will commit to a new doctrine. Any member species facing military threat will receive mandatory assistance from the Council Defense Forces. The vote to help or not help will require an 80% majority to deny assistance, rather than a simple majority to approve it. This makes it much harder for the Council to abandon member species in the future. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates supported the changes. Others argued they went too far. The Sarvan representative stood up angrily. "This sets a dangerous precedent. We're rewarding Earth for breaking our laws." Velcor rose to respond. "We're adapting to reality. Earth proved that determined species can innovate beyond our restrictions. We can either work with that reality or fight against it and lose. I prefer adaptation. The debate continued for hours, but slowly, gradually, a consensus formed. The galaxy was changing whether the Council liked it or not. Better to shape that change than to be crushed by it. Finally, the vote was called. The new framework passed with 68% approval. Not overwhelming, but enough. Earth could keep its ship. The Council would reform its protection policies. The galaxy was entering a new era. Ben Carter received the news on his bridge and felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Stand down from battle stations," he ordered. "Looks like we're not fighting today." His crew cheered. The Revenant had survived not just the Krell, but also the political battle that followed. Earth was safe, and humanity had earned real respect through strength rather than submission. Over the following months, the changes rippled through the galaxy. Earth shared its shield technology with 17 different species. Some of those species began developing their own defensive innovations, creating a boom in military research that the Council couldn't control but learned to guide. The balance of power shifted from centralized control to distributed capability. The Krell Empire, true to their word, opened formal diplomatic relations with Earth. They still weren't friendly, but they were respectful. Commander Vakar even visited Earth and met with Admiral Cole. The two officers found they understood each other despite being from different species. Both were warriors who valued strength and honor. 6 months after the crisis, Ben Carter stood on the bridge of the